All right. So welcome to the first episode of the Twins Off Daily podcast. My name is Greg Masterson. I am a writer at Twins Daily, and I've been there for about a year. And we are starting a podcast. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. I'll start with Lou.
Hey, I'm Sweet Lou Hennessy. I've been writing for Twins Daily for about a year and a half here, and I also write for Zone Coverage, covering the Twins. I've done that for about 3 seasons now, I believe.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm Matt Braun. I've been writing for Twins Daily since 2019. Good Lord, that makes me feel old compared to you guys. And that's all I really do for writing. Mainly do the minor league report. Now doing post games. Now that they're actually playing games on Friday, thank God. So yeah.
And Cody.
Hi, I'm Cody Schoenmann. I've been writing for Twins Daily for about a year now too. I also write for Zone Coverage with Lou. But yeah, I mean, I mostly write about players at the pro level. I write about relievers a lot. So that's kind of my niche. But yeah, I've been writing for about a year now.
Cool. And then I'm going to go around the horn really quick as we introduce ourselves and ask you, really give you some personality. You can tell everybody who's listening, who is your favorite obscure Twin of all time? I'll go first. Mine, I love players who make you go, wait, he played there? And so it was a hard decision, but I'm going to come to Brett Boone being my favorite obscure Twin of all time. Lou, what do you got?
Brett Boone's a legend, I gotta say, but I'm gonna go for my favorite obscure Twin is gonna be the sidearming legend himself, Mr. Pat Neshek.
What a legend, Matt.
See, I not to pick a bone with you, Greg, because I love what you're doing, but it feels like the thing about Brett Boone is he's almost like so famous in Twins realm as the guy who just happened to play for the Twins that it's like it, right? Do you get what I'm saying?
You know what? I totally get it. What about Ruben Sierra?
Okay, there we go. That's
Ruben
a good
Sierra
one.
played, I think, like 43 games in 2006 and then retired. They cut him and it was just over for Ruben Sierra. Like it was like the Twins' last grasp, like their last payback for all of the heartbreak that Ruben Sierra caused the Twins. Like they held him until he was done. Okay, so I'll switch to Ruben Sierra. I'm okay with your qualm.
That's good. Let me be clear. I wasn't trying to bully anyone out of this. I was just like, if we're going to be really obscure about this, let's get obscure. And as I say that, I'm going to say someone who's definitely not obscure, Tommy Milone, because Tommy Milone has pitched in every single year up to last year. He really has. Honest to God, check his Fangraphs page. Someone out there is like, God, we need a start. There's Tommy Milone. He's here to collect his league minimum paycheck and then get out of here.
Did he ever top 90 miles per hour on his fastball?
God, no.
Do we know that? Yeah,
I don't think so. There's no way.
Cody, what do you got?
So I take a lot of pride in my heritage, and I think I'm Italian. At least that's what my grandma told me. So I'm gonna go with Darren Mastriani for my obscure pick. Very speedy, toolsy center fielder, kind of giving a lot of parallels to Rocco Baldelli. Not just because he's Italian, but also because, speed, has a hit tool. I think they had injuries both at one point, probably. Also, fun fact about Darren Mastriani, he is currently a financial advisor at Edward Jones in Minneapolis. I don't personally have money, but if you do have money, I think Mastriani would be a really good consultant to invest in.
I'm going to cut you off. No free ads on the podcast.
Never mind.
We need to get sponsored first.
Edward Jones, if you want to, but yeah, never mind. Don't take my advice.
Cody, I got a question. So what's wrong with Chris Colabello? What, you got beef with him, man?
No, sometimes I just forget about other Italians, and I just happen to do that this time. But yeah, no, Mastriani is my preference.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't know the last time I thought about Darren Mastriani, so thank you for that. I guess to keep it moving, I did want to just maybe we should have introduced what the idea of the podcast was before our extensive Darren Mastriani discussion. But the idea here is this is the Twins Off Daily podcast. As the name suggests, our aim is to drop a podcast every off day. We're all Twins fans. We kind of schedule our lives around being able to watch the Twins. As I do my delivery driving, I plan my days out to make sure that I'm in a position that I can listen to a Twins game as I'm driving the truck. But on those days that we don't have a Twins game, there's a little twin size hole in everybody's heart. And so that's where we come in to kind of provide that Twins. I don't like the word content. I think that's a little sterile. I like art. So we'll provide some Twins art to your lives. So generally, we're going to be looking back at what happened since the last time that we met. We've already missed 3, 4, 5 off days. So we'll be getting started for real on the 6th off day, which is going to be next Thursday. You'll have an episode out. But in the meantime, we just wanted to get a recording done so that we can say, oh, we have podcasted. Oh, we are going to be able to do this. So expect to hear from us, every off day. At most, it'll be like 2 weeks apart. Sometimes it'll be multiple times in 1 week. Wherever there is a hole in the schedule, we will be here to talk to you. But the general structure, we'll look back at what happened since the last time we met. We'll talk through some current events. We'll look forward to what's going to happen between this podcast and the next one. But for right now, for today, since this isn't, a full official off day podcast, we're recording this right after the end of the Detroit series. So we just kind of wanted to go through what happened this week, these last 3 days. It's been a complete roller coaster. So I'll just really quick do a recap. On Friday, the Twins lost 2-8. It was a pretty miserable game all around. Yesterday, there was a doubleheader. The Twins swept, played, I'm not good at math. 22 innings of baseball, 21 innings of baseball. We had an 11-inning game and then a 12-inning game. 12-inning game, then a 9-inning game. So that's 21 innings of baseball. The Twins exploded in the 12th inning, capped by a Ryan Jeffers 3 RBI error and then a Matt Wallner home run off of a position player.
Just like they drew it up.
Yeah, finally, who knew all the Twins needed?
Was that had to have been AJ Hinch punishing Zach McKinstry, right? Okay, you're gonna make an error, go on the mound,
eat it.
I was joking that Kyle Farmer needed to come in and pitch after tonight's game, or when his error led the Tigers to scoring. I figured, just like McKinstry, we've got to get Kyle Farmer out on the mound.
It's either the mound or straight to jail, Kyle. You need to pick one.
And so then in the night game, the Twins beat the Tigers 4-1. It's kind of a fairly just standard baseball win. And then today, as alluded to, was going fine, but a couple of misplays in the field led to Detroit scoring in the bottom of the 8th and ended up winning. So generally, we're not going to just recap a series, but I wanted to get, guys, how do you feel about how this roller coaster of a series just went?
I can start. Friday night, the vibes were just completely off. We got, Carlos Correa leaving early on in the game, which what we thought was going to be an oblique injury, which, as many of us know, that's a lengthy absence. It takes a long time for folks to get back right after straining an oblique. Luckily, we found out, I think it was yesterday, they said that it was an intercostal strain, which are the kind of muscles between the ribs. So hopefully his recovery time will be a lot quicker than if it was an actual oblique. But yeah, the vibes started off terribly on Friday. Then Saturday was the big marathon and kind of building up steam. And as you said, Greg, it was quite the roller coaster for the whole weekend. And this game on Sunday was just a pretty unpleasant, sudden ending, I would say.
Yeah, it's just after the doubleheader, you sweep any doubleheader and the vibes are just immaculate. And today's game really felt like one of those where they were just cruising for so long and Ober was just pitching so well. You almost can't even fathom, right, that they could lose that game. And then they do. And you're like, oh, it's Minnesota sports, of course. Why? I was so dumb. I was so dumb to expect anything else. And then in the way that it happened with the like weird one hop ball, you're giving up a home run to 2024 Javier Baez, for crying out loud. I mean, these things happen. It's baseball, but I think overall, I would say it was a positive-ish series, just to get them back on a better track than they were.
Yeah, to add to Lou's earlier point too, in the first game of the series, like Pablo Lopez kind of got hit the hardest we've seen him get hit, definitely this season, but I would say probably dating back to like even last season as well. But luckily, I feel like silver lining of it, the starting pitching actually looked really good and like solid for like the first time this season. I mean, besides Joe Ryan had a really good start. He's had 3 good starts, but he really like solidified that he has been the Twins' best starting pitcher this year so far. Simeon Woods Richardson, as we know, he had a really great second game of the doubleheader. Like inarguably his best start in the majors. It's only been 2 starts, but I mean they've been both against the Tigers at Comerica, but he did look really good in that start. And then today, Bailey Ober looked really good again. He looked really good against the Dodgers in the second start of the year after imploding against the Royals in that first game. So I think a really nice trend that occurred was that the starting pitching, outside of Pablo, looked really good. I mean, we'll see how Louis looks in his next start against the Orioles. We'll get into that later. But I think one of the more promising takeaways was how the starting pitching looked in this series.
Yeah, it looked really solid all around. Very exciting. It's awesome to see Simeon Woods Richardson out here, throwing in the mid 90s. That's so big for him as, in terms of his future. He does. I didn't realize this, but he does have 2 option years left. I thought that this was his last option year, but he came up in 2021. But he finished the year with the team. He was added to the 40 and then finished the year with the team. I thought that he had used an option year that year. And so that's super exciting. It's not like the Twins need to like force him into the rotation right now, because he's going to need to get, ready for next year. But I mean, it's awesome if he's able to kind of continue this. He hasn't looked terrific at AAA yet this year. But that was a very competent, great, it was a very good start to his season. And I love to see that.
Yeah, not to mention, I think among Twins fans coming into this year, there's a lot of anxiety about the number 6 starter in the rotation. Who's the first line who's the safety net if somebody gets hurt or is ineffective early on? And it was like, oh, okay, well, are we really sure we're ready to trust Simeon Woods Richardson with starts if one of those first 5 go down? And I think he showed yesterday that he can be competitive and that he's going to definitely pitch some meaningful games for the Twins this year.
Mm-hmm. And the guy's only 23. Like it's kind of weird. He's got like that post prospect hype, and because he peaked when he was like 18 or 19 in the Blue Jays and the Mets. But yeah, he's only 23. I mean, he's barely got any major league playing time. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I think Tom Fromming mentioned this, but I think Woods Richardson is actually younger than David Festa still, if I remember correctly, which is pretty crazy. I also wanted to add, so to Greg's earlier point on his fastball velo. So if you look at Baseball Savant, it's only 1 appearance last year. He had that stretch appearance against the Nationals, but his 4-seam sat at 90.5 last year. And then in the 1 start this year against the Tigers, his 4-seam was sitting at 93. So it's a pretty big, I think it's like a 2.5 mile per hour difference right there, which is a really substantial increase.
Yeah. And it's, I think that it's awesome to see this kind of working out. And it's, it's not just Simeon Woods Richardson. Like Ryan looked terrific. Ober looked like kind of the platonic ideal of Bailey Ober is just that dude who goes out and he gives you competitive game after, and like, saying somebody was like competitive out there or competed out there is kind of like a backhanded compliment, but like, what Bailey Ober does so well is just keeps his team in the game. It wasn't that way last game, unfortunately. But today, just looked just competent. And I think that sometimes comes off as like an insult. But that's what he kind of does. I do wish though that, the offense would do something. The last couple, like both games yesterday, it felt like there was an offensive outpouring, but so many of those runs were scored in the 12th inning, while Yakety Sax was playing in the background. And then, in game two, it felt like just a very competent game, but it was a 4-1. It's not like there was an offensive explosion. It was just like a normal number of runs being scored. And this is what this team can do if they just score a normal number of runs. But unfortunately, we haven't really seen that.
Definitely. So I guess what is, just real quick before we move on, what would be the biggest takeaway that each of you have had from the Detroit series? For me, I'm going to say, I think it was pretty key that they used a lot of bullets in that first game of the doubleheader yesterday. They were really going for that win in the first one. They used all their relievers except 2 or 3, I want to say. And they really gassed themselves. And that's a game that I think that they lose in the last couple of years of Twins baseball. It seems like any doubleheader, I know they didn't have a doubleheader last year, but we saw in 2021 and 2022 that this felt like one of those games where they would use a ton of bullets, have a heartbreaking loss, and then go into that second game with a depleted bullpen. And I'm really glad they won the first game. And then obviously it's awesome that they took the second to boot.
I wanted to say, like, Detroit and Minnesota, I think was it last year that they had 5 games on the road in Detroit in 4 days. It was like a 4-game series that they added a double header to, and they lost 4 out of 5, including getting swept by Detroit. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
That was 2022. I believe it was Memorial Day weekend, 2022.
Yeah, I remember Jermaine Palacios was a shortstop, I think, for that series. It was kind of
We try not to. We try not to.
Yeah, number 87, Palacios.
Oh, good Lord. There's something about Detroit, man. It just playing in there is so cursed. I mean, even though you're looking at those like rinky-dink hits they're getting, and you're just like, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't like it. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I guess in terms of a takeaway that I have, I'm super excited. I don't know if excited is the right word, but I'm optimistic about Austin Martin and his place on this team. He had a good series. It's not like he was tearing the cover off the ball, but he was taking competent and I know I've said the word competent like 9 times already. But it is relevant for a guy who's getting his first touch of major league action. Like, he's not tearing the cover off the ball, but he's putting together really good at bats. He's not swinging and missing. He's not chasing. He's taking his walks. He's not striking. Actually, he took some strikeouts today. But it's just been exciting to see him come up and just kind of fit in. I'm not looking for him to be, an everyday player or anything like that, but he's really in position right now to kind of settle into a role at minimum as another center fielder. They've been playing him in center over Margot. If they need him to platoon with Julian at second base, he's got that locked down. I'm excited to kind of see how he continues to grow.
Yeah, one of my main takeaways was it was really nice to see like expected main contributors like on the offensive side like actually hit well. Like Christian Vasquez had the home run today. Kyle Farmer, even though he's still struggling, he did have some hits. Willie Castro finally hit a home run. He had a double, 2 an RBI double, which is really nice. Like Greg mentioned, I mean, Martin wasn't expected, but to see him kind of like get on track and hit well too. Matt Wallner hit a home run off a position player, very Joey Gallo-esque, but I mean, it's something. It's better than constantly striking out all the time. So, but it was, and also Ryan Jeffers too had a really big series. So it was really nice to see those guys finally like contribute at a pretty consistent rate, and hopefully that will stay a trend as we continue into Baltimore.
Yeah, and so now you brought Matt Wallner up. Who are we feeling down on after this series? I think Wallner's kind of been an ongoing story this year with, I don't know what he's at, but coming into today, wasn't it 14 strikeouts in 19 at bats or something along those lines? Who else are we feeling not so great about right now?
Look, there's a handful of hitters that you could definitely put into this bucket, just with the slow start, just the difference in approach that a lot of fans are really hating right now. But One thing that has surprised me so far, I have not been impressed with Manuel Margot's defense, and I thought that was going to be a key, a clear strength for him, even if the bat wasn't there necessarily. He's taken some really awkward routes on some fly balls to the outfield. He looks very choppy. He looks uncomfortable out there, and I was under the impression that he was going to be a real asset in center field and especially in the corners. And I have not seen that from him yet, and it's hard when he's not hitting and also not contributing on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that because his numbers actually defensively did take a dip the last few years. And I mean, some of that probably you could maybe chalk up to, hey, advanced defensive numbers are just weird. Like they say you need at least 3 years for a decent sample, but it's kind of looking like that's just a trend. So maybe they should have thought about keeping Michael A. Taylor for whatever pennies the Pirates ended up giving him. But yeah, it's not looking good so far.
Yeah, it seems like Martin is much more of an option at center field than Margot. I feel like Margot is going to roam around right field and left field. I mean, with Kepler being out right now, we'll see him a lot in right field. Wallner's struggles too probably will give him more opportunity, but it definitely seems like with the current construction that Martin is definitely more of the backup center fielder to Buxton than Margot, which is not what we expected, obviously, coming out of spring training.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's keep this moving. Just kind of want to look ahead real quick. What will be happening in the next series? Again, after this series, we're going to have like a full show with a full recap of kind of where we've gone so far. But looking ahead, the Twins are going to be on the road against the Orioles in Baltimore, naturally. So Monday, we've got Louis Varland versus Cole Irvin. Tuesday, Chris Paddock versus Grayson Rodriguez. And Wednesday, Pablo Lopez against old friend Tyler Wells, who was lost in the 2021 Rule 5 draft alongside Minnesota legend and Detroit legend Akil Baddoo. Did anybody see Akil Baddoo this weekend in Detroit?
No? I didn't see him once. No.
Interesting. So how do we feel? How do we feel about the upcoming series?
It's going to be pretty pivotal. We're starting to see the bats heat up a little bit and I guess slightly rein in some of these strikeouts. And the starting rotation for the Orioles is pretty big. There's some big challenges there. It's going to be a big game for Louis Varland tomorrow. I'm excited that he's going to go and pitch in Baltimore where they moved the fence back in left field. Hopefully he reins in a couple of those loud fly balls that have gone over the fence for him these first few games and so far in his career. So I'm excited to see what he can do and hopefully keep it in the park.
Mm-hmm. The thing that really scares me about Baltimore, and I mean they were the 1 seed last year for a reason, is just like they have so many great either left-handed hitters or switch hitters that like them moving back barely even matters. Because I mean, who are you scared of? Ramon Urias? Are you scared of James McCann? Like right, all of their hitters are either left-handed or switch hitting. Shout out to Jackson Holiday, who they just called up, and guess what? Hits lefty. So yeah, trying to keep that lineup in the yard, especially for Louis, that's going to be interesting to see. And I think it's just going to be interesting to see that I think Baltimore should be, again, the class of the American League. So we'll see how they match up against a team that's probably going to be the best they faced so far.
Yeah, I mean, the Orioles just lost 2-3 against the Milwaukee Brewers. They gave up 11 runs in their first 2 games that series, so their pitching is kind of going through a little bit of like a weird spot right now. So it will be interesting to see how the Twins bats can, go against the Orioles. I know like the Orioles' best pitchers besides Rodriguez are not going to be like Corbin isn't going to be pitching in the series, so the Twins kind of do have like a slight pitching advantage. It looks like, so hopefully they'll be able to capitalize off of that. Yeah, it'll be a really interesting series. I think the Orioles and Twins at this point are more evenly matched than the Twins maybe are given credit for. I mean, the Brewers, who are a similar team to the Twins, just played them really well. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how the Twins play against like the class of the AL.
I just know I'm gonna turn the screen off when Yenny Cano comes on the screen. I can't handle that, man.
Nice trade, Falvey.
Nice trade, Falvey. Yeah, actually, to kind of go with that, right now the Twins kind of need to just try and tread water a little bit. This is going to be a really tough series, obviously. It's probably short of the Dodgers, going to be the best competition that they've had this year, and they're going to be without Carlos Correa. Even though we've got some good news, he might be coming back sooner than anticipated. Right now, without having Correa, without having Lewis, without having Duran, there's kind of just an aspect of just like, hey, keep treading water, especially against the Orioles. Don't get swept, please. But wanted to kind of last kind of preview item. How do we feel about everyday shortstop Willie Castro going forward?
I think for the absence that we're anticipating for Correa, if it's in the closer to weeks rather than month plus, I think they can make it work with Willie. But if it was going to be longer than that, I would feel very uneasy.
Yeah, pretty much same boat. Hey, this is what we all get for saying they had good infield depth. I mean, in an ideal world, you've had Brooks Lee up here for like 2 weeks and he's doing what he has to do. But right now they're in a tough pinch. It's going to be Willie Castro, and then hey, do you want to ask Junior Severino if he can play shortstop? Maybe move Kyle Farmer over there, because that's really it.
I was very surprised when they announced that Castro was going to be that everyday shortstop, because isn't that kind of why you're paying Kyle Farmer $6 million? He is on the wrong side of 30, but it's not like Willie Castro has this great reputation for being an infield defender. So that was a little bit surprising to me, because they're going to be playing together a lot. It's going to be Farmer at third and Castro at short. And I was just surprised that it wasn't flopped around.
Yeah, I know that Castro has a better arm and better range than Farmer. So maybe the idea is that, with shortstop being tougher on the defensive spectrum, that the idea might be that Castro is suited better there than Farmer, and Farmer could take the less challenging position in the hot corner. But yeah, it is kind of a weird position, because, we do think of Farmer as the backup shortstop to Correa. Also the only thing that I know is that Austin Martin will not get a chance there, because Austin Martin is not a shortstop. Nope.
Cool. Okay, cool. So I think that's enough hot takes for today. Let's have a little bit of fun. I'm gonna go around the room real quick and give me, in the Baltimore series, who you think will have the most, and don't get me for this one, I'm going to use an old school baseball stat. Who's going to drive in the most runs in the Baltimore series?
I'm going to pick Ryan Jeffers. I think that he's starting to see the ball a little clearer here. I think he's starting to get back on the right track, and I especially like that he seems pretty comfortable coming in different pinch hit opportunities. So I think that he's going to continue that.
You know what? I'm going to say that Byron finally gets off the schneid and does some damage. It feels like every time they go to Baltimore, he just hits an absolute tank shot where you're just like, oh, this guy's Willie Mays when he's healthy. So let's hoping that he does it again.
I'm going to go with fan favorite Carlos Santana. I think he had a pretty good last couple of games in the series. He was actually driving the ball a little bit more, making harder contact. And, I think with all the injuries, he'll be getting more time at DH and first base, and he'll probably be in RBI position. So I'll go out on a whim and say Santana gets the most.
So I'm gonna go out on an equal limb. I'm gonna say Willie Castro. If they keep batting him fifth, I mean, behind a murderer's row that includes Manuel Margot batting cleanup, like he has 2 times in the last 2 days, if you guys haven't been paying attention. But I do think, that he is starting to see the ball. I have a crazy stat for you that he has struck out looking 8 times this year, which just does not make sense with his profile as a guy who swings at literally everything. And he has been swinging at he's also been striking out at balls in the dirt. But He had that shot today. If he's batting in the 5-hole, maybe we will see that. So we're gonna keep track of this all year. Our picks to stick. Whoever has the most points at the end, we'll figure out a prize. But we'll keep track through the rest of the season with that.
Cash prize works fine, Greg. Thank you.
I have $7.
You're so kind, Greg. I mean, $50? Jeez.
I just said 7. This is ridiculous. And then the last thing we want to do today is we're going to introduce a game that we're going to call Immaculate Greg. So I am going to pull up. We've all seen. If you have not seen an Immaculate Grid, I don't know where you've been. But the idea is that there is a series of categories and it's a grid. And so wherever categories intersect, you try and find a player. So, Immaculate Grid will say, give me a player who was a Red and a Red Sox. I have come up with something even better called an Immaculate Greg, where we are going to find our favorite twins who fall into these different categories. If you're on YouTube, you can see the grid that I've set up. It's a 2x2 grid. If you're not on YouTube, across the top, we have Marlins and lost a playoff game as our 2 categories. And on the left side, we have nice trade Falvey and catcher or emergency catcher. And so if we have to find somebody who is a Marlin and falls inside of the nice trade Falvey, that definition is either any Derek Falvey trade, any trade that has been ballyhooed by Twins fans, or both. Then you would have to find a catcher or emergency catcher who was at one time a Marlin. Then you have to find somebody who was part of a Twins playoff loss, who was also in the nice trade Falvey category, and then someone who lost a playoff game and was a catcher / emergency catcher. So for this one, the way we're going to try to do this is I'm just going to give the other guys 1 minute to come up with somebody for each of those categories, and then we'll move on. Okay? Any questions, fellas?
Nope.
All right. Give me your favorite twin who was a Marlin and fell inside of the nice trade Falvey category. You have 1 minute.
Okay.
Few options we could go with here.
So Arise is right off the table, right off the bat, because that's too obvious, right? I mean, we got to do better than this.
Too obvious. We need obscurity.
We need the most obscure.
Does Chris Vallimont count?
Ooh, I think so.
I like that. Here's my thing. Technically, they didn't get him in a trade at the Marlins, but I do believe he was a Marlin. I think Sam Dyson would work there. Sorry to bring him up. I know that just harsh. I know that harshed the vibe.
Super fun.
His debut was against the Marlins as a twin, and he blew the game. So
I remember that.
Yeah, because he got off the plane, and they're like, "Hey, get in the game."
A guy with 2 hours of sleep, go pitch.
Yeah,
that was
so.
You have 10 seconds.
Oh shoot!
What about Lewin Diaz? Who isn't that? Who they traded for Sergio Romo?
Dylan Floro.
I'm sticking with Diaz. I like
Lewin Diaz is okay. Cool. A former Marlin who is also a catcher or emergency catcher.
Okay. So we talked about Josh Willingham beforehand, so I feel like that'd be cheating.
Yeah.
I did like me some Sandy Leone.
Sandy Leone is good too.
What if I told you that there was a twin who was an emergency catcher recently traded to the Marlins, like within the last month?
Oh.
Nicky?
Yeah. At
No
one point,
way.
he was the emergency catcher. Was he?
Was he? I did not know. I guess I wouldn't put it past them. I don't think that they will ever use an emergency catcher, no matter the emergency. But that very well may be.
Wow.
I don't know. Willingham is pretty good because did he catch at all in the majors? I mean, obviously Nick Gordon didn't, but Josh Willingham is a fun name too.
Wait, was
I'll put Lenny
Astudillo
on it, our
Marlin?
producer, to look that up.
Our non-existent producer, yes.
Hey, I'm Lenny.
Sorry.
Okay, so Willingham is that one. All right, moving on to nice trade Falvey and lost a playoff game.
I mean, this really runs the gambit here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the most fun one we can do though?
How about this? Here's a name coming to me. Ready?
Oh Lord.
Zach Granite.
I was just
Remember?
thinking about
Yes.
Zach Granite.
Okay, because he was in that game. What was that? 2017, the
And he
wild
missed
card
the
game, and
bag.
He missed the bag.
Oh,
He
yeah.
missed the
And
bag. Okay,
there was
but
all that ballyhoo about people saying, "Why do they have Buxton when they have Zach Granite?"
But he had like 5 singles in 2 games, and they're like,
Right.
well, clearly this guy's the next Rod Carew. The
What about
question, but was he ever
Jaime
traded
Garcia?
though? I don't know if Granite was traded though, so I don't know if that quite counts.
I thought he was not in a notable trade. I thought it was,
Maybe.
but
Actually,
hold
I
on,
do.
look it up.
Now that you mention it, I do think they gave him to like the Rangers for some dude that we've never heard of.
That sounds right.
All right, I'm liking Zach Granite. I don't know about you.
To Xavier Moore, our producer Lenny says.
Xavier Moore,
He was
there you
traded
go.
to the Rangers in 2019 for Xavier Moore and cash.
He played for the Yankees, right? Granite?
Did he, or was he just from New York?
No,
Yeah, it might
literally, Zach Granite played 40 major league games, and they were all in 2017 for the Twins.
Okay, and I have
Maybe
to
he played
say,
for, like-
Xavier Moore never played a minor league game for the Twins.
But you know what? I'm still going to consider it a nice trade, Falvey, because we didn't have to hear about Granite over Buxton anymore.
That was a nice trade. Thank you, Derek. All right, moving on to lost a playoff game as a catcher or emergency catcher.
Okay. So Chris Jimenez was the backup catcher in 2017, right? He was pretty fun. I liked him.
Mm-hmm. Bobby Wilson. I don't
Bobby
think he's
Wilson.
on that team.
I don't think he was, but good name.
No.
I think
they were traded for each other.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Eduardo Escobar was the emergency catcher at times.
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
He caught one game. Yes.
Caught one.
We
Wait,
could
he
do
actually ended
Kyle
up getting in a
Farmer.
game?
Yes, he did catch a game in 17, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Kyle Farmer last year.
Yep. Kyle
Yeah.
Farmer, they've never designated him as emergency catcher. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Rocco's even been asked about it, but he did come up and he has played major league games as a catcher. He
I think
has to be the emergency
in the spirit
before
that would
anybody else.
that would work in the spirit.
Right.
I feel like, yeah. So do we have a consensus here?
Josh
Can I throw out one name? It's one of my favorite Twins of all time.
Okay.
By the name of Pat Borders.
Okay, Pat Borders, yeah.
He was I believe he was 43 years old at the time. He was when Mauer went down in 2004 and they were trying to find a backup for Henry Blanco. Pat Borders, 43-year-old catcher and former World Series MVP, caught some games, had a critical passed ball in, I believe, the first game that started the 0-18. But yeah, so I'll throw that name out. If we can come to an agreement on who's going to go in that spot, we can wrap up for the day.
It does
Let's
feel
go
a bit
Borders.
like cheating when the house gives you the answer. I don't know.
I just have to take the excuse to use the term Pat Borders.
That's fine. You know what? Let's go with it. Why not?
Okay, so for the top left, we had Lewin Diaz. Bottom left, the catcher, Marlin, Josh Willingham. Lost a playoff game, nice trade, Falvey, was Zach Granite. And lost a playoff game, emergency catcher was Pat Borders. Awesome. Okay, cool. So that was our first Immaculate Greg. That was fun.
It was immaculate.
It was immaculate. Okay, cool. So we're going to wrap up. We will be coming back on Thursday. Generally, it's going to be probably most of us. We're going to have kind of a rotating aspect where other Twins Daily writers are going to get on and lend their voices. But you can expect to see at least a few of us, I'd say, every episode. So any parting words?
Keep the faith. Stay sweet, everybody.
Man, I'm really thinking about Zach Granite right now. This is crazy, dude.
Yeah, I was going to say Granite. So he did sign a minor league deal with the Yankees. So he wasn't actually a Yankee, but he was kind of a Yankee.
Okay. Hey, he's only 31. Bring him back.
He's still in his prime.
Pick him up.
With that, I guess my parting words will be rest in peace, Abraham Lincoln. Died 164 years ago today. And we will talk to you guys next Thursday. That's where we're going. We'll talk to you Thursday. So long.